Hi, it's Doug Keating. Welcome to my third practice video. In the last two videos, I described our 2015 vacation to Bavaria. In this video, I'm going to describe the plan I pulled together for our summer 2016 vacation. The boys really enjoyed Europe, so we decided we'd go back and see a different part of it, Benelux. Three countries comprise Benelux: Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. If you string the letters together, you get Benelux. All three countries are close together, so it's an easy region to tour on just one trip. If you're not familiar with where Benelux is in Europe, here's a quick map. To the west is France, and to the east is Germany. Having Germany as a neighbor has actually been problematic for this region over the past century, but things are good now. Here you see a summary of the agenda we plan to follow. Once again, we're planning a 2-week vacation at the end of June. The trip would include myself, Gavin, and Riley. Our goal as always is to have a lot of fun and experience the local culture. We're going to see several sites but focus our time in the capital cities as well as a few major cities in Benelux to include Brussels, Luxembourg, Bruges, Ghent, Delft, Harlem, and Amsterdam. The previous year we moved around a lot, so this year we are going to stay multiple nights in the major cities. Like last year, we plan to take an overnight flight to Brussels. One big change though, we're going to take a direct flight, no connecting flights this time. We learned our lesson the hard way last year and didn't want to get stuck in Newark again. No way. We'd land in Brussels and spend the day there. I've been to Brussels multiple times before. It's a great European city. Not as cool as Paris, or as big as London, or as historic as Rome, but there's lots to see and do. It's well known for the Grand Place, which is a beautiful city square surrounded by gilded houses and other picturesque buildings. It's in the center of the old part of the city. Some consider Brussels city center to be the most beautiful one in all of Europe. Brussels is also known for several other things, to include the Mannequin Piss or Peeing Boy statue. This statue is slightly strange, but wildly popular with tourists. It's worth seeing once. Afterwards you'll wonder why it's so popular. It's tiny, but that little guy has quite a following. They actually dress him up on special occasions. Brussels is also known for fries. The Flemish love putting all kinds of tasty stuff on top of their fries in addition to ketchup. Here you see it pictured with mayonnaise, just in case the fries don't have enough fat in them. Also waffles, Belgian waffles. They're sold throughout the city in stores and food stands and readily available. The next morning we would visit the historic battlefield of Waterloo, which is not far from Brussels. Waterloo is where Napoleon finally surrendered after wreaking havoc all over Europe. I've not been to this battlefield before, but I've heard from several of my military friends it's a great place to visit. Then we return to Brussels to enjoy other things, such as chocolates. Belgian chocolates are world famous and quite tasty. And perhaps a little beer. Belgium is well known for its beers. They taste great and have a lot of variety. Belgians tend to flavor their beers with all kinds of funky stuff, to include fruit. It's kind of funny. Belgians think German beer is boring, and Germans think Belgian beers are just plain weird. They're both actually right. The next day we would visit Luxembourg. Luxembourg is a tiny country in Europe. In fact, I think it's actually called a duchy. I've been there many years ago when I was an exchange student in high school. I know, they let me be an exchange student. I did not spend a lot of time in this tiny country, but I remember Luxembourg being a pretty cool place to see. So I thought the boys might enjoy it. The plan was that we would spend the day there and then head back to Brussels to spend the evening. Friday morning we would board the train and head northwest towards Bruges. Ghent is a nice city on the way, so I figured we would take a stop there. I've never been to Ghent, but I've talked with several folks that have, and they say there's plenty to see and do, so it makes sense for an easy day trip. Then we'd get back on the train and head to Bruges to spend the evening there. Bruges is one of my favorite cities in all of Europe. I've been there several times, and each time I've really enjoyed it. It's an excellent historic place, completely walled, with a city center that dates back to the Middle Ages. It's famous for a lot of things to include fries, waffles, chocolate, and beer, just like its big brother Brussels. Plus lace. It's handmade, which is rare these days, and created using bobbins, like the one shown in the picture here. Bruges is well worth spending some extra time in because of all the sites located throughout the historic city. As you can see in these pictures, it has waterways and canals, and you can actually take boat tours and see all the old houses and several different things along the river. You also see a picture of the Belfry. The Belfry is tall with lots and lots of stairs. but it's worth the effort to climb to the top to see the excellent views of the city and the surrounding area. There are also several great museums, cathedrals, and art to see in the city. The next day, we would board the train and head to Holland with one day in Delft. Delft has some great sights to see from what I understand, but is probably best known for its blue and white porcelain as shown here on the slide. Now, I'm not a big fan of porcelain, but Delft seemed like a good place to visit and a great way to introduce the boys to Holland, especially since I haven't spent much time in this country. After Delft, we would head to Holland's most famous city, Amsterdam. Amsterdam is world famous for many things, to include art, canals, and of course, cannabis. Now, we would not be partaking of any pot on this trip. No pot smoking, eating, or in any other form. First off, it's illegal. Second, I'd lose my job. And third, I really don't ever want to see the boys stoned. We would spend a few days here to soak up the culture of the gilded houses, museums, and bikes. The next day, we would take a side trip to Harlem. It's not far from Amsterdam. Rick Steves recommends it as a great place to see. In fact, he recommends it as a place to stay if you don't want to be in the big city Amsterdam. So we would go, spend the day there, and then return to Amsterdam. We would spend our last day in Amsterdam seeing a lot of the historic sites, to include the Vincent van Gogh Museum, as well as the house that Anne Frank lived in when she wrote her famous diary. We would spend enough time there to soak up all that Amsterdam has to offer. Well, except for the hookers. On Friday, July 1st, we would fly back to the United States. I thought it was important to get back to the States before the 4th of July weekend. And yes, once again, we would be taking a direct flight, so that we don't experience delays or get stuck in an airport we don't want to be in. I still have a lot of work to do to get ready for this trip. I needed to buy plane tickets, train tickets, and also make reservations at all the places we would stay. My goal this time was for us not to rent a car. We would take the train everywhere. Driving in this part of Europe is actually not that bad. I've done it before. I just thought it would be fun to use only the train to travel in this area. I also would use Rick Steves' book for planning purposes. I've used his books before, and I highly recommend them. They're full of all kinds of practical advice. I was excited about the plan for the trip, but as it turns out, the boys were not nearly as excited as me. They let me know that instead of going to Benelux, they really wanted to return to Germany. The good news is that they let me know with plenty of time to spare. I hadn't made all our reservations or bought tickets and could just come up with a new plan. What I plan to do in the next video is share with you that plan, the plan for us to return to Germany. As always, we're interested in your feedback and comments. Feel free to scroll down and leave a comment. Thanks for listening.